In this video, we're going to create multiple child agents and implement them as part of a multi-agent architecture in Copilot Studio. Child agents allow us to break up a long set of instructions into smaller chunks, and they also allow us to control exactly which knowledge and tools the child agents use to process those instructions. And the beauty of it all is we have more reliable agents. The system is more reliable. And we can even make our child agents reusable too, in some cases. The agent that we're going to build together today is a document reviewer agent. It's going to take a look at my expense report right here and help me decide if there's any errors in it. Here I can see I have some duplicate expenses for Air Canada, and I can also see that I have some misclassified expenses for the Yellow Cab taxi service. These should be ground transportation type charges. I'm going to ask the agent to review my expense report and upload that Excel file into the chat window. And when I click the send button, it's going to read that Excel file and then call on two child agents to conduct a review. You can see the first agent, called the duplicate expense items checker agent, correctly found that I have a duplicate expense for Air Canada for 50216, and the expense classification checker agent found the two line items for Yellow Cab taxi service and that they should be ground transportation. Two child agents, two tests, 100% success. Let's dive in and see how I built this agent. The first thing I want you to do is to open up Copilot Studio and start a brand new agent. Typically, I would show you the instructions that I wrote for the agent first, but in this case, I think it's going to be better to create the first topic before we do that, and then maybe the child agents as well. So let's head on over to the topics menu and click add a topic from blank, and we're going to call this topic read the Excel file. When the user says, please go ahead and review my Excel file, what this topic is going to do is it's going to take an Excel file as input and extract all of the values out of that Excel file. Then it's going to output those values into a global variable so that our child agents can use them. Let's start by writing our description of this topic, and I'll say this topic reviews the travel expense report for the user, and then we will add a question node. And the question node is going to be where we upload our file. So we'll say, please upload your expense report to the chat window. And we want to identify a file type entity. I always like to name my variable something meaningful. So I'll click on var1 right here, and I'll call it var Excel expense report file. And I might need it later, so I'm going to call it a global type of variable. Looks like I clicked off of it. There we go. Global. Next thing we'll add is a prompt action. So I'll click add a tool and new prompt. And this is where we're going to extract all of the values from that Excel file that we upload. Let's use this set of instructions. I'm going to copy and paste them into the window here, and then we're going to read them together. Let's call this prompt read an Excel file and return all values. That looks great. So this prompt says, read an Excel file and extract the value of the cells in each worksheet. That's the goal. Then for the inputs, we're going to use that Excel file. So I'll hit my slash key, and I will name this one Excel file. Then I'll upload my Excel file as a document. Where is that Excel file on my messy desktop? Let's hit all files, and there we have it. Okay, but you can see I got an error there because Excel is not a file type that we're allowed to upload to a prompt unless we use Code Interpreter. So let's go to our settings menu and hit the Code Interpreter button. And when I come back here, now I should be able to upload that Excel file. Now, Code Interpreter is something special. What it does is when we run the prompt, it creates some Python code, and that Python code is going to go and read the Excel worksheet for us. So it's not the prompt that's doing this, it's a script, a Python script, specifically to open and read Excel files. Here we have the prompt instructions. It says open the Excel workbook to get all worksheets, get the used range of each worksheet, then extract all the non-blank cells in the used range as strings and load them into a Python dictionary, and output the response as a JSON in the following format. Here you can see we have our worksheets in array with the worksheet name and the cells, and for each cell we have a range and a value. So this is a really nice structure for reading Excel files and outputting their values. Next, I'll click the test button and we'll see what the response comes back with. And after a few moments, we can see this actually looks pretty good. It's exactly like what we wanted, except we wanted a JSON. Okay, so we got to hit the test button one more time there, and now we've got it in the correct format that we need. That looks amazing. So remember, here you can see cell B1 is Devaney Industries, B2 is employee name, Matthew Devaney, and as we go down, we can see all of our expense line items. And if I open up my Excel sheet again, you can see that, yep, Devaney Industries on B1, employee name on B2, my name here, and kind of so on and so forth. So let's hit this save button. And it says a prompt name, like this one, already exists. Let's just put MD at the end. And when I hit the save button, it's going to appear in our topic. Okay, we've got the prompt in our topic now. So now we want to pass in that file from our previous question node. And then we want to give the prompt output a name. Let's call this var Excel expense report prompt output. Eesh, that's a long one, but it's going to be handy to know exactly what that does. So that's why we wrote it so long. Next, I'll hit this plus button over here, and I'm going to set a variable value. Let's give this new variable a name. We'll click on var1, and let's call this var Excel expense report JSON, because this is how we're going to pass the JSON value outside of the topic to our child agents. So notice that I picked global type of variable here as well. And we want to set that to the structured output of the prompt. The structured output is what the JSON is stored in. If you pick the wrong one, it might only give you the text. Here we want to have it as the structured output. And then finally, we're going to say something like, okay, I've read the expense report. Okay, I've read the expense report. Now I will perform a few checks to see if there are any errors. Because it's important to let your users know what the agent is doing at all times. It takes a little while for the child agents to go and perform these tests. So if you don't tell the users what's happening, they might get confused and close the session, or they might just think it's taking a really long time for no reason. Now we'll go ahead and save this topic, and we'll just do a quick test to make sure that it's working. Hit the plus button. Then I'll type the words, review my expense report. Then I'll upload the Excel file into the chat window. Click the generate button, just like that. And shortly we should see it output this message, okay, I've read the expense report. And we can even go back into the topic and check out the variables. And we should be able to see that JSON of values from Excel. And there we go. We can see it all right there. That's exactly what we want. Now I'm starting to get excited because we're about to build our first child agent together to check for duplicate expenses inside of that expense report. To build a child agent, click on the Agents menu and then click Add. And then you'll see this menu that says choose how you want to extend your agent. Now we have a couple of options here. The first option we could choose is create an agent. And what that does is create an embedded child agent right in our expense report reviewer agent. And that child agent can't be reused anywhere else. Now, maybe that's okay because our duplicate expense reviewer is not something I could see being used elsewhere. But the advantage of using the embedded child agent is that we can use the same tools and the same knowledge that the parent agent has. If we wanted to connect our expense report reviewer to an existing agent, well, we could use this option right here. It says connect an existing agent from Copilot Studio. So you would open up the menu there, select an agent that you built previously, and then this agent could call it. We'll actually take a look at that a little bit later. For now, I'm going to click on Create an Agent, and we're going to start to create our duplicate expense report checker. Let's start by giving this agent a title, Duplicate Expense Items Checker, and then we need to give the child agent a description. We need to give it a description so the orchestrator knows when to call it. So I'll say the agent will identify potential duplicate expense items. And next we get to give it some instructions. I'm going to copy and paste this long set of instructions and then we're going to review it together. And I'm also going to delete this right here, which is a placeholder. And I'm going to reference that global variable that we made earlier. So for the expense report JSON. All right, let's pick the table. Great. So the instructions say review the variable called var Excel expense report JSON for any potential duplicate expense items. So it takes that global variable and it pastes its value right into the instructions at the time this agent is run. Then we tell the agent if duplicate expense items are found, output the message to the user in this format. And here we have a sample message format. And you might recall that's exactly what we saw in the example I showed at the start of the video. The following duplicate expense items are found in your report. McDonald's for this date and this amount, and Uber for this date and for this amount. But of course, not all expense reports will have something wrong with them, so we'll also give some instructions on what to do if there's no issues. So we say, or if there's no duplicate items found, output a message variation that says no duplicate expense items were found. And here I've also written some strict instructions, and they say do not output any additional text after the sample message format, because that's what I found the agent was doing if I didn't write those strict instructions. So sometimes when you're creating agents, it's an iterative process, and you need to keep on adding things to the instructions just to make sure that they work. So this is a pretty simple child agent, and that's all I'm going to do for this. I'm not even going to add any knowledge or tools. It's just going to be some smaller subset of the instructions that I wanted to give the parent agent. Here I'll click Save. So now we have our duplicate expense items checker agent. Child agent. Now let's go back to the overview tab, and I want to start writing my instructions to show you how this is going to work. And each time we add a new agent, a new child agent, we're going to add them to our instructions. So I'll scroll down to the instructions here, and I'll give us a bit of a head start by copying and pasting again. I do wish that these instructions Could be expanded so we could see everything here. Maybe I'll click the save button and then they'll get a little bit larger. Okay, yeah, that's a little bit easier to read. So here the instructions say, when the user asks for an expense report review, number 1, run the read Excel file topic to read the Excel file. So that's what we did right here. That's what we did to go and get the expense report and the cell values. And number 2, use the following agents once each and act according to their instructions to review the expense report. So here we have the duplicate expense items checker. I'm going to replace these with references to the topic and the agent by hitting the / key. There we go. So now we are connected to the topic and the agent in the instructions, and it knows what to call. And I'm sure you're going to guess exactly what's next, because when we build the next child agent to check on expense classifications, all we're going to do is add a comma and then another reference to an agent right here. So maybe before child agents you thought the best way to do this was to write all of this inside of the agent's instructions, right? Really, really long set of instructions. Here we're just telling the instructions to call the agent, and it makes the overall system a lot more reliable. Let's check our progress here. I'm going to start a new test session and say, please check my expense report. Then I'm going to upload my expense report. Here you can see that the agent has processed the expense report and it's found the duplicate expense items, and that's exactly what we wanted. Looks like we're on the right track. Next thing we're going to do is build our second child agent. And remember, each child agent is here to perform a specific type of test. I'm going to click on Add an Agent and then create a new lightweight agent once again. So it's going to make it an embedded type of agent. And what we want to do here is we want to create the expense classification checker. So we'll pick expense classification checker. And the description is going to be the agent will identify expense items with the incorrect accounting code. Next, we'll copy and paste in our instructions and take a moment to read those together. There we go. I think one more thing I should do here is go ahead and add some accounting expense codes as knowledge. So we'll do that first and we'll come back and read the instructions. They'll make a lot more sense. So we'll add some knowledge to this agent. And here I'm going to choose to grab a file and upload it. It's called accounting expense codes. And we can even take a look at what that accounting expense codes file looks like, just like this. Okay, oops, kind of fell off the screen there. There we go. So here's what this file looks like. It's just a plain old PDF, and it says this document lists accounting codes used to classify and report common business travel and related expense categories. And it goes on to provide these 8 categories, the account name, and most importantly, the descriptions. And the agent is going to reason over these descriptions, matching them against the expense line items to decide what the proper expense classification should be. Now that we have that and the file is started to upload, let's go read our instructions. We can start by replacing this with the variable reference. There we go. And these instructions say, apply this reasoning method for each expense item in var Excel expense report JSON to check if the correct expense code was used. So remember, because we're making the direct variable reference here, at runtime, it's going to paste in that really large JSON of all the Excel cell values. So here's the samples. Item 1, JD Marriott on this date in the amount of $425 was classified as hotel and lodging. The correct accounting code is hotel and lodging because Marriott is a hotel company. Makes sense. Next, item number 2 says McDonald's. I went here on this date and it was this amount. It's classified as hotel and lodging. The correct accounting code is 5001 meals and entertainment because McDonald's is a restaurant and the incorrect expense code was applied. So like I said, in this first step here, we're really just telling the agent how to reason over things and give it some examples. In the next step here, we've got the sample message format. So if the agent identifies any misclassified items, send a message to the user as shown below. We've got one for McDonald's here. And I'm just going to indent this a little bit. Looks good. Yeah. And we also have another sample one for Uber here, which we didn't mention in the earlier instructions. The reason being, we just want to show how it should output the items if there's more than one in kind of a list. I think we got it. I'm really fussy about those bullet points. Or if there are no misclassified expense items found, send a message variation that says all items on the expense report have the correct accounting codes. Must strictly include whether each expense item in that variable is correct or incorrect in the response. So that's what we want to say. Strictly do not send any messages other than described in step 2 and do not ask the user any questions in the message output to the user. So you can see I was really fighting with the agent here, the child agent, to do what I wanted. And again, I overrode it in the strict instructions. All right, so now that this knowledge file is uploaded, let's come back to it for a minute. Leave the page. Don't leave. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to save. We're also going to get rid of the web search right there. And now we're going to head on over to that knowledge source. The one thing we wanted to do before we go and give this a try is give this knowledge source a description so the agent knows in which context to use it. I'll hit the save button right here. And then I will back out. But you can see a peculiar thing has happened. The knowledge over here was something I uploaded to the child agent. So if we go back over the child agent for expense classifications checker, you're going to see it there as well, just right down here. And that's because these embedded child agents use the knowledge and tools of the parent agent. So you have to upload it to the parent agent, and then you can put it in a container and just have it used by that their child agent. Let's go back to our overview because we need to add one more agent to our set of instructions here. And what we need to add is our expense classification checker. We can hit the save button. And again, the reason we wrote it this way is we don't want to write a long set of instructions. Here we can just say, when the user wants an expense report review, call these agents and they'll execute an order, and the agent won't get confused by a very long set of instructions. Next, let's do our test. I'll clear the test window. I'll say, please review my expense report. I'll upload that Excel file to the chat window. And then the agent will take a moment to read that Excel file, get its values, and then call the child agents. So here you can see it called both of the child agents in sequence. It called the duplicate expense items checker first, and just like last time, it got the Air Canada duplicate expense items. So consistent results, people. I only did one recording of this. Expense classifications checker came next, and here we can see Yellow Cab Taxi Service. It found two misclassified expenses, one where it said it was a hotel and the other where it said office supplies, but really they're ground transportation. And if we go back into that Excel sheet here, we can see that Yellow Cab Taxi Service and Air Canada, they're actually valid files. They're actually valid expense items from inside this file, rather. Now, I did also want to show you how to connect a standalone agent to the expense report reviewer agent as well, so you can see both styles of child agent. So let's go back to the agents menu to get a quick refresher. So over here, remember it says connect an existing agent. Let's go ahead and try this option. Here you can see some of the other agents that I have in the environment. In fact, I only have one right now, and it's called Travel Policy FAQ Agent. Let's go ahead and add this agent to the expense report reviewer. So here you can see there's a description of the agent, and it matches the agent in Copilot Studio exactly. And then we also have the instructions from that agent as well. Here we've selected the option pass conversation history to this agent. So what this is going to do is allow it to pass information from agent to agent, but you can also choose to turn this off if the agent should operate independently. I'm going to click add agent here, and then in a moment we're going to go take a look at what this agent can do. All right, so I'll click on that. I'm going to come over here to Travel Policy FAQ Agent. And let's take a look at what this particular one does that's connected to the expense report reviewer now. So like it says, its job is to respond to employee questions in a clear and concise manner and provide actionable advice. It's supposed to cite specific information from the travel expense policy and use bullet points in order to make long responses easier to understand. Okay. So we've got this, we've got some knowledge right here. We've got a travel expense policy, and it looks like we can download it and take a look at it right here. So there we go, travel, meal, and hospitality expenses policy. It's just a really, really long PDF. Okay, great. Now let's try to ask this agent a question. Let's ask it something like, what type of gifts am I allowed to give to volunteers? And what I want to show you is that I can ask a question to this travel policy FAQ agent, standalone agent here, and it's going to give me this response. And then we're going to go and try that inside of our expense report reviewer agent as well. So it says you can offer appropriate token gifts. If it exceeds $100, you got to obtain approval from the CFO or CEO, and the policy doesn't apply to gifts given for recognition of years of service. Okay, pretty good. Let's go back to our expense report reviewer agent. So remember we connected those two agents together. The policy FAQ agent is going to be a child agent. One more thing that we need to do is add some directions here. Add a little bit more to the instructions. I'm going to substitute this placeholder with travel policy FAQ agent. There we go. And let's take a moment to read these new instructions that I have entered. When the user asks a question about travel expense policy and reimbursement, use the travel policy FAQ agent to answer them. Strict instructions do not assist the user with any other tasks. So now we're just telling the agent, don't do anything else, just do exactly what we said here. Again, we've made a specific reference to the travel policy agent and when to use it. I've got my agents menu over here, and we have our travel policy FAQ agent connected. Let's ask a similar question and see if it comes back with the same response. See if we're successful. We'll say, what type of gifts am I allowed to give to volunteers? Then I'll hit the enter button. And when I do that, the orchestrator will decide to call the travel policy FAQ agent, which is a standalone child agent. That agent will start to look through its own knowledge and go ahead and answer the question from it. So it says the policy does not specifically mention gifts, but does cover hospitality for non-employees, and it goes on to include pretty much the same types of items that we saw in the response when we looked at it inside of that travel policy FAQ agent. So that's embedded child agents, that's standalone child agents, that's it. That's the video.